Hey, what up? Welcome back to my channel where we're going to look for a nice looking dribble design and we'll try to clone it using Flutter. So in the last couple of videos I did like a mental health app, a coffee app, and also in the last one I did a medical app, like a doctor kind of thing. So today I found this nice looking wallet app with these cards and I think it looks pretty good, so let's try to clone this using Flutter. And just before we start, check out this time lapse of what we're about to create. And if you haven't already, you should follow me on TikTok or Instagram, where I post these time lapses of, all these UIs that I create from scratch. So it's kind of cool to see something go from nothing to something. Now, first thing is on this first page, which is the one that we'll try to focus on this video. Looks like there's not too many images, but there's some of these icons that we might want to collect. Now we can obviously use some of the default Flutter icons, but some of these ones I want to get some custom icons. So one good place to get them is flaticon.com, which is something I use regularly, and so you can have a browse of different icon packs that you might want to use. But I already collected some that we might want for this project. So I have the bill, a card, and a send money. So that's just for these three. And then I also got a couple more icons for the statistics and the transactions. So just a statistics icon and then a transaction icon as well. So you don't have to use these particular images, but this is what I'm going to use for this project. So let's come over here, let's pull this aside, and I'm going to create on my desktop a new Flutter project, and let's call it wallet app UI. I don't know when I'm going to update this. I usually update my Flutter when, I run into like a problem. But here it is. This is our wallet app. Now let's open this up, and in the library, let's drag this icons folder that we just created and open up Visual Studio Code, and let's open up that project. And let's open up the iOS simulator. Now while that's opening up, the first thing we should always do is these icons that we downloaded are all PNG files, right? They're just pictures. So we should go to the pubspec.yaml and just tell the project that we're going to import some of these assets. So let's comment this out. And we are bringing in libraries/images/. If you end it with a slash, it'll just bring in the whole folder. So let's save this. Library/images doesn't exist. Oh, sorry, I called it icons. My bad. Okay, let's save that. And go to the main.dart file and let's run this real quick. Sweet, and there's just the default Flutter app. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete everything below the main function so that we can create this from scratch. So let's do the usual setting up. Let's create our material app and check this debug banner to be false because that's annoying. And let's create our home page. And just to keep our project nice and organized, let's create a new folder called pages. And let's create the home page here. And this is going to be a stateful widget, which is going to return a scaffold. Cool, so let's import this in our main.dart file, and if you just save this, it should just be a blank app, and let's start from here. Cool, so what we're going to do is, first of all, if I just bring this guy back, let's think about a bit of a plan, right? So we're going to have my cards at the top with this button, which we could place in the app bar. And we're going to have this horizontal list view so we can scroll through this. Actually, this is going to be a page view, which I'll explain in a bit. And we're going to introduce these little dot indicators, which makes the app look a little nice and fancy. And then we've got these 3 buttons, and then just a column just showing these guys. Okay, so let's try to create a nice plan for this. So in the background color, first of all, I think we could make this maybe like a gray. And I'm wondering with this, sometimes I like to have this in an app bar, or sometimes I prefer to have it just at the top of the column. For this one, let's just have it at the top of a column instead of specifying an actual app bar. I think it'll just make things a bit easier. So like I said, you can create an app bar here, but I'm actually just going to create a big column and put the app bar there, because it's only just a text widget and a button anyway, so just to make it nice and clean. And then below the app bar we have the cards, and then we've got the 3 buttons. So we got the send, we got the pay button, and then the bills button. Cool. And then we have a column. So I'm just going to write column of, actually let's just say column, and then stats plus transactions. Cool. And then we've got a bottom navigation bar at the very bottom, which we'll get to at the end. Cool. So let's start this off. So in the app bar, we're going to create a row, and let's have a text widget saying my cards. And it's scrunched up there, so it's covered by this notch, which is why we can wrap this in something called a safe area. There we go. And I like to have a padding of 25 around the border. So that's looking good so far, and let's create a text style and make this much bigger. Cool, and may as well just follow what this looks like. Let's make that bold and this not bold. Why not? And there's something called a rich text, but just for this purpose, I think it's probably easier if we just make 2 text widgets like this, and this first one can be bold. Yeah, that's cool. So let's make this 28 actually. Okay, and then we should have a plus button there. So let's put a plus button. So icons, probably called add. Yeah. Now what you'll find with this is, because we have 3 children in the row and they're all aligned to the left, we want to push that plus button to the complete right. So usually we would do something like this, where you go space between. But the problem is, because we have these 2 text widgets, everything is space between, right? We've got these 3 guys to space around. So then you have a nice little trick you can do. So just these first 2 guys I want to group together. So let's put them in a separate row. Cool, and yep, that does the trick. So you just have one item here and then the other guy there. Cool, let's make this plus button a little bit more decorative. So let's wrap it in a container. And we're going to make this gray. And also the shape, let's make it a circle. And let's give some padding as well. It's a bit stuck. Maybe 8. Cool, and this gray, maybe we can make it like 400. Okay, sweet. So far so good. We got that top section going on. Now let's create this card swiping area. Now we could use a list view, which gives us a bit of a continuous scroll. But for this one, I think a page view is a little bit more appropriate. So what do I mean? First of all, let's create some space here. Again, I like to space things out with 25 pixels. And in the card, so first of all, let's just create a card. Let's say in the child, we want a column of different items. So first of all, let's say like the balance. First of all, let's just try to hard code some of this information and just so we know what it looks like. 5250.20, and then we have a row, and this is going to be the card information. So something like this. Okay, let's see what that looks like. Now let's actually put a color around this so we can see what this container looks like. Okay, cool. So there's our container. Now it's filling up the entire width because we didn't really specify a width, but that's okay. What we can do here is to actually say width maybe 300. Yep, that seems like a good width. And also let's put in some padding so things are not so stuck on the sides. Cool, and let's just make this look more nicer by rounding the corners. Cool, I think we could round a bit more. And all of these widgets inside, we can make the color white. So that's what this one looks like. It's a bit white for all the text widgets. So let's try to do that as well. Now, unfortunately, all of the text widgets have a bit of a different style on them, so we'll have to do it individually. So let's say first of all, it's just white. And this one is white, but also the size is pretty massive. And this one is just, we can just leave it white. Same as this, we can just leave it white. Cool, and this one here, we want to space this out. Okay, this is looking good so far. Now these two guys, I want it on the left, so I'm pretty sure we could just specify it for the column. Hell yeah, looking good, good, good. Okay, we'll space this out a bit. Here, let's say size the box. Let's say like 10. And then another size box below this. I think we could make this 20 or 30. Let's go with 30. And I actually want one more space box at the top. Okay, it's not looking too bad. Maybe we can make this a bit bigger as well. Okay, I like this. So this card has a lot of lines of code, right? So what we're going to do is copy this or cut it, and let's create a new folder called utilities. And so this is where I like to create the encapsulation of different code that we know we're going to reuse a lot. So what should we call this? Let's call it card. It's a bit too brief. What should we call it? Let's call it like a, I mean, it is a card. Let's call it my card. My card. And so instead of this container, let's return what we created before. And let's just ignore this constructor's constants for now. And then we can come back here and we can just create my cards. Okay, so we wanted to make this a page view, right? So first of all, the difference between a list view and a page view is if I just create a container here, let's say it's 200, and I'm just going to put a color in just so that I can see like how much space this is occupying. Yep, that's about right. So in this container, if I put a list view and you put a few cards in there, it's, first of all, it's vertical by default. So if I just change this to horizontal, a card view is, oh sorry, a list view is a continuous scroll. So you can be like between cards like this, right? Whereas a page view, I wonder if I can just change this. Yeah, a page view does this, where it's like you can only display one card at a time. So I think for this app, I think a page view is a bit more appropriate. And then now we can come back to this individual card and actually put in a padding, but only for the horizontal parts, maybe 25. What happened here? Cool, so now we can just have like these cards switching around. Awesome, so now that we have this card page view, let's make these cards unique, right? So we don't want them to all display the same information. So let's do a bit of object-oriented programming, right? So in other words, like if you think about these cards, let's think about what varies between them. In other words, what are the variables? So obviously the first thing is going to be the money, right? So final string balance. You could make this an integer or a double, and most likely we should do it a double because it's a number, and then we can convert it to a string later on. So let's just do that. So final double balance, final double, or this one can be an integer, card number, and then final integer expiry date. And just to make this more specific, let's go expiry month and final integer expiry year, right? Because there's two different numbers there. And just lastly, let's do a color so we can switch up the color as well. So let's create the constructors for this. So this balance, this dot card number, this dot expiry month, this dot expiry year, and this dot color. And let's require all of these guys. Okay, so whenever we create a balance in the home page, we can now say, let's leave the $, and then balance. but because this is a double, let's go to string. And then we got the card number. Well, right now we have like this asterisk, but this is just a demo app, so I'm just gonna have 8 card numbers. Let's just replace it. And this here, so this is the expiry month and the expiry year. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to leave the slash, and we'll say expiry month to string, and then expiry year to string. And I think that's it. Oh, and this color. So we made the color deep purple, but just whatever color we choose. Okay, so what did we just do? If you come back to the home page, you should see that the cards are all red squiggles now, because we have to specify this information. So the balance, let's just say 525.20, card number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The expiry month, let's go 10. Expiry year 24. Color, and this is where we can choose a color. So let's just see if that's working. Cool, there we go. Now let's create another card. And let's just switch up some of these numbers, like 4. Okay, so we have these 3 cards. Okay, so far so good. Now, just to make this look more like a card, I actually want to okay, cool. Now, a little bit later on towards the end, let's go find another icon that has like a MasterCard or like a Visa logo. We can place it here to make this look a little bit more like a real card. But just for now, since we got the basics down, let's just leave this to be. And the next thing I want to add is a expanding dot, what do they call it? Like expanding dot indicators. So this is a package I really like to use. And so if I just show you the package here, I got it opened up. I made a video for this as well, but you can check it out if you need, but I'll just quickly explain this, right? Like these expanding dots, right? I want to use that one here, the second one. Okay, so we're going to grab this guy and I'm going to put it in my pubspec YAML. So let's go to the dependencies, and if you just leave a blank, it'll just get the latest version. So let's just do that. Cool, and then what we want to do here is below this, we want to have a smooth page indicator. Okay, and it requires us to have 2 things to fill out, the controller and then the count. So the count is just how many cards you have. So let's say like 3. And the controller is just knowing which card are we on. Like, are we on the first card, the second card, or the third card? So we haven't created this controller yet, so let's just create it real quick. Come up to the top, page controller. So final controller equals to page controller. And then if you look in the page view, you should be able to see this controller, and now we can give it our controller. Okay, so what this does is it just keeps track of what page we're currently looking at. So if I save this, you can see the dots there, and so it follows accordingly. Cool, so first of all, let's put a little gap there. Let's say 25. And so that's one type of the page controller. Like I said, there's a few of these ones, right? I want to use the expanding dots. So it looks like it's on worm right now. So let's go for the effect. I want to go expanding. Oh, there it is, dot effect. Sweet. And the active dot color we should be able to specify. Yep, there it is. Colors dot. Let's make it just gray, but maybe a darker gray. Yay. Okay, cool. So far so good. Okay, so coming back to our dribble design. So it looks like we have this basically set up. Now let's try to add these 3 buttons. So let's copy this sized box again. And this one, I think a row will do. And then we want to have a send button, a pay button, and then a bills button. So a send button, let's just create a container, and in the center of this container, so this is where we brought in our icons, right? So the first one I want to use is the send money. So these are all images. So let's go image.asset, library / icons / send money.png is what we called it. Now this is probably going to be huge. Yep, so we should specify the size. So we should actually specify the container here so that we can control how big we want this to be. So let's first of all give this a color so that I can see what's going on. Right, so 100 maybe. And then padding. I think this padding could be much bigger. Okay, and of course we want to not make this so sharp. Let's make this more curvy. Maybe a bit more. Okay, that's looking good. And below this, actually, we want to have a little text widget saying send, right? So this we should wrap in a column. And below this, we need to have the text widget saying like send. Yeah, like that. And let's just decorate this up a tad. So style, text style. The size could do a bit of a boost. And the font weight could do a bit of a boost as well. And I reckon the color can be gray, but maybe a bit darker. Cool. And let's just put a bit of a gap between these guys. Cool, I think that looks pretty good. Now one thing I want to do is I'm going to create a bit of a shadow around this container. So if you go to the decoration, there should be a box shadow option. And I think this is a list. Yep, it's a list of these box shadows. So the color is, I'm just going to go for a darker gray. And let's see what happens if I just save this. You can't really see it. So blur radius, which is 0. Let's make it 10. Okay, so you can start to see the background a bit. And what about this spread radius? Okay, you know what? That looks pretty good. Yeah, just put in a bit of a spread here. Okay, so I like that so far. Okay, yeah, that looks pretty good. Now, I want to create more of these ones. I want to create 2 more. So obviously I'm not going to just copy and paste this. What we're going to do is copy and cut this actually. And let's create a new file in our utilities because we're going to reuse this a lot. What should we call this? Like button, let's call it my button. And return what we had before. Cool. And then just while we're here, again, similar to what we did with the cards, let's think about what's varying between these objects, right? So what are the variables? So first of all, we need to change up the icon, right? So this one is, I'm going to call it icon image path because that's what we really need. And what else? We need the final, just the text, right? So button text, and this one can be a string. So this dot, oh wait, this one is also a string. And let's require both of these. So icon image path, we can now put in here. And button text, we can now put in here. Sweet. So if you come back to the home page, now we can say my button. And we have to automatically fill out these 2 things. So the first one is library, icons. And what did we call this icon? Send money. Copy this and pay button. I think that's the credit card. Credit card. And then one more is the bills button. So that's just bill. Okay, let's save this. Okay, cool. So there's our 3 buttons. Now we can actually come to this row and just space evenly. and that's looking pretty good. By the way, we put a sized, like we put a like a margin, like a padding of 25 on each of these. So let's just do the same thing for the row, because it looks like it's not lining up perfectly. Whoops. Okay, I see you. Then I should make this space between just to fill up that space. I think that's lined up. Okay, cool. Now just looking at this design, I think I could make this a little smaller. TBH. Maybe like 90. I can't decide between space evenly and space between. Alright, let's just go with space between. Okay, cool. So we have just one more essential thing to do, which is make another space. And we want to have a column of 2 list tiles basically. So let's put a column, and we're going to have a statistics and then transaction history. So something that looks like this. Flutter already has a built-in widget called list tile, but I'm just going to create this using the basic widgets like columns and like containers and things like that. So here you can use a list tile, like I said, and just check this out. You can create something similar, but I'm just going to create it myself. Like I'm just going to have a row with the icon. So container height is 80, and the image.asset library/icons. So the first one was statistics. Okay, there it is. And so the first thing was just the icon, and then next to it I'm gonna have a column because I want to say statistics, and then below it let's put a little subtitle, so payments and income. Cool. And on the very right I want a little arrow, just icon dot arrow, arrow forward. Cool. And I don't want that icon. I want this one. Okay, cool. Now with this, let's make this a little bit more pretty. So let's, first of all, I'm just gonna put in a padding of 25. Then let's get rid of this 25. And this container, I think we could give it a box decoration color of white or gray. And put some padding inside this container, 12. Border radius 12. Cool, and then I think we could make this cross-axis alignment to be at the start. There we go. Let's make this bold. Maybe a slight tad bigger, 20? Is that too big? No, that's alright. This one doesn't have to be bold, and it doesn't have to be so big. And the color, let's make it gray. Okay, cool. And also, maybe we can say main axis alignment space evenly. Looks like there's not enough space, so let's put in some space in the bottom. Okay, that looks pretty good. And we need some space there, so okay, nice. Cool, and I want that arrow to be on the far right. And so I showed you in the beginning, but we want to say space between for the row. So it pushes this guy, but I don't want this to come with it. So let's group these two in a row, which is this and this. Okay, so put those in a row so that it groups up like that. Okay, that's pretty good. So I want to create another one below, and this is the time where we should create another file in the utility so that we're gonna reuse the code. And let's call this my list tile. Did I copy it? Yep. Actually, I gotta get the row. I gotta get this entire row. This guy. So cut this and let's paste it in here. And again, let's think about the variables. So what's going to change from tile to tile? So obviously the first one is the icon image path, the tile name, tile subname. So you got the name and you got the subname. Let's call this tile title and tile subtitle. I think that's more appropriate. And that's actually it. So create the constructor for this. And let's replace all this. So if I come back to this, I can now say my list tile, there it is. And let's fill out this information. So library/icons/statistics. And then the other one's transaction. Okay, so statistics, payments, and income. change these to transactions. And let's just call this transaction history. Sweet. Okay, which tells us we should add some padding on this row. And we probably only need to add it on the bottom. Okay, cool. That's looking pretty good so far. I'm just going to clean up some of these paddings. Cool. And just the last thing we're going to do is, just looking at these buttons. I don't know why, but they don't look that great. I want to switch it up a bit. Maybe we don't need like a color. Yeah, I don't know. I think that looks even better, just having nothing there. And the shadows, like if I just make this white. Yeah, I don't know. I think that looks better for some reason. Okay, we're just gonna leave it like that. I actually prefer this. Yeah, and these guys can still have their borders around it. Okay, cool. Now, one last thing I'm going to show you is the bottom navigation bar, like this situation. And I actually looked up on Stack Overflow how you can have this hovering button in the middle. So let's see how that goes. So usually when you create a bottom navigation bar, we say bottom nav bar. We usually use this one, but I realized that there's actually a bottom app bar. And so apparently this one's easier to use. So let's just see what this looks like if you save it. Nothing happens. Now the floating action button. Floating action button. Okay, so let's just fill this out on pressed. Just do nothing. Okay, so there it is. Now apparently there is we can specify a floating action button location. I didn't even know that this is a thing. Floating action button location dot center docked. What? That's so cool. Oh, that's there. Okay, now I don't know what happened there. Oh, I never knew that you could do that. Okay, well anyway, let's try to keep working with this guy. So the color, background color is, let's go for pink. Yeah. And I guess the child, you can put any icon in here. And so I don't even know what icon you would put in here. Icons.money. Let's just try this. Okay, let's just go for that. Now, Wait, so what's this about bottom app bar? Child row. Icon. Okay, there it is. And let's just create one more. Settings. Main axis alignment, space evenly. Cool. That's actually pretty good. Now, actually, one trick I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put in maybe a blank container here. Okay, I don't know what happened there. Let's get rid of that. Space between. But that's too far. Space around. Okay, that's actually good. And this bottom app bar. Okay, that looks pretty good. But these icons, maybe we can make them a bit larger. Okay, this is looking pretty good. I'm just gonna put a little padding on the top. Let's just see how that looks. Okay, yeah, it does push it up. And maybe make this action button just a slight tad bigger. Alright, I think it looks pretty good. Alright, that's looking pretty good. Now, just lastly, I'm just gonna look for a MasterCard symbol. Okay, so I was just on that Flat Icons website and I downloaded this, which should make your card look a little bit more realistic. So in the wallet UI, in the icons, let's just grab this guy and let's put it here. So sized box, wrap this in a row, image dot asset library slash icon slash, what is it called, visa. Now this should be pretty large, so let's restrict the height to 50. Okay, fingers crossed. Oh cool, there it is. Now main axis alignment, space between. Actually, let's put this in a row with this guy. Okay, yeah, that's better. Alright, cool. So that's pretty much it for this video. I'm just going to leave the design up to this point. So hopefully you learned a lot about how we can create a good looking UI like this. From this point on, obviously there's still a lot more we can do, right? We can make all of these buttons with a gesture detector so that you can tap on them and move to a different screen. Like if I click on statistics, we should go to a new screen, same as with all of these buttons. But just in terms of the aesthetic and the look, hopefully you got a good idea on how to code something like this. Let me know if there's any questions or if there's any other particular designs you want me to create, and if I like them, I'll make a video out of it. So yeah, let me know. But other than that, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Laters.